Hello and welcome back. Today I have new fabrics to share. I don't so often have new fabrics to share quite as quickly. I feel like it wasn't that long ago I was showing you my Starberry fabrics, which Quilt Shops just finished ordering last week for shipment May of this year. And as they were finishing up ordering those fabrics, they also started getting shown my next line of fabric, which comes out in June of this year. I have two back-to-back fabric lines, which is fun and also fun to be able to share more fabrics with you right away, but it certainly kept me hopping over this summer and fall. So I am going to be showing you Coriander Colors. We're going to look at these fabrics in detail, and I'm going to be sharing more about this collection with you. So this is Coriander Colors. As you can see, it has a whole rainbow of colors. These are some of my favorite warm sherbety colors that I love using, and it will mix beautifully with my previous collections. The prints are also prints that I've used in previous collections, and as I am sharing these fabrics up close, if you remember where we first saw the print, if you can remember the very first collection where I introduced any of these prints, leave it in the comments below. I'm going to share that information at the end of the video so you can see if you were right. But we are revisiting some of my favorite basic prints that I've had in previous collections in my favorite colors. So I think this collection is a lot of fun. Now, this is not a basics collection, meaning that Moda will not be planning to reprint these. It's a regular collection and in stores in June. So if you like what you see, make sure to let your favorite quilt shop know now so that they can order it to receive then. And once it is in quilt shops, it's always so much fun to see what everyone makes with these fabrics. All right, let's take a look at these up close. We're going to start with the warm colors. We have this fun rings print. So do you remember where we first saw this one? You'll have to think way back to the archives to remember this one. One fun thing about these fabrics, I was just thinking about this today, is that depending on when you discovered me and when you started purchasing my fabrics, you might not realize how much of a rainbow I enjoy using. I tend to use a lot of different colors, sometimes all in one collection, but then I mix that up with smaller palettes in between those lines. So sometimes you will see the whole thing, and sometimes you'll see maybe just the blues and the peaches and a little bit of green, like what we saw in Peachy Keen, or in Starberry, we were seeing reds, greens, blacks, a little bit of gray. And so it's really fun to have all of the colors to choose from and then to hone in on the exact palette I want to use from collection to collection. All right, I just thought that was fun to think about. Now let's move down these fabrics here. We have a beautiful medium scale dot. Where did we see this one first? Again, you're going to have to throw it way back to those fabric archives. And many of you are probably not even familiar with this line of fabric. A check print. This one is a little bit tricky because this is a smaller scale version of a print I've used often. So you've probably seen the larger scale version of this print in a previous collection. Where did we see it first? A beautiful medium scale stripe. Wait until you see this one in the black. I used it for nearly all of my bindings on my new quilt patterns. Yes, there are new quilt patterns for this line of fabric, and I will be sharing those with you next week, so stay tuned for that. A pin dot, and then that same medium polka dot. There are only 6 different prints in this collection, so not a lot of prints, but a really versatile palette, and the fact that you can mix them with my previous fabric collections. Maybe you have bits and pieces of a fabric line, but you need just a little bit more to kind of round it out. You can easily pull fabrics from this collection to add to that. So that is the first collection. We're going to move into the greens and the blues. We have the X print, and then the pin dot again. That little check. My hands give you an idea of the scale on that. The pin dot. And then those rings. Now, one thing you might be noticing is that there are not a lot of whites, not a lot of white backgrounds in this selection. You can see just a couple, just one here maybe, that we are going to encounter as we work our way through. The reason for that is because these fabrics mix beautifully with coriander seeds. Now, coriander seeds is my white on white line of basics. So those fabrics do stick around, and quilt shops can continuously reorder them, and they mix wonderfully with these. I love having good white on whites because you can just mix them in with everything. Here are the darker blues. Just a couple purples. Do you guys remember the collections that had the purples? There were 2 collections that I had that had this shade of purple. If you like this shade, don't worry, it is coming back down the road, but I love the way this color looks with these warm fabrics that I like to use. And then we have the grays and those blacks. Slide everything over so you can kind of see everything all at once. There we go. That works. So you know I love my grays. So we have a nice selection of grays here. There's the one white background fabric. This is another one I used a lot of. This worked really well for the backing fabrics for the quilts that I designed for this collection. And so I really liked using that one for backing. There are no 108-inch wide fabrics in this collection. I get asked that pretty often. So no 108s in this collection, but as I said, this works really nicely for backings. Most of them would work very nice for backings. I tend to like a little bit more of a print than some of these smaller scale are, but the polka dots I think are really nice for backings. All right, we're getting down to this black stripe here. This is so perfect for bindings. I think I used all of what I received in advance to make my quilts, and I am definitely going to need to order more of this one. There's something so striking about a black stripe for a binding, and I love the way that framed out my quilts. Just that little, it was such a good contrast. I really like that for bindings. The check, the little rings, and then that medium dot. So that is what all of these fabrics look like in detail. I do have more photos of these over on my blog post today. So if you want to see additional photos of these fabrics, be sure to check that out over there. Now we're going to take a look at where these prints were shown originally. I think it's fun to look back and think about that. So let me pull those for you and we'll take a look. So I've got my little pile of previous fabric goodness, and let's just take a look where some of these fabrics were first seen. Let's start with this X print right here. This is a print that you have seen in a number of my collections, but where did we see it first? We saw it in Holly Berry. Right here is the X print on red. You can see it up here on the white. Fun fact about X print, in my strawberry jam line of fabric, I had a plus print, which was nearly identical to X print. It was just rotated a little bit. And so when Holly Berry came out, I rotated my little pluses and it became an X print. And I have introduced this print into a number of different collections over the years, and it's always one that I really enjoy using. So of course we had to use it in Coriander Colors. All right, so that's the only one in Holly Berry. Moving on to Sundrops. How many of you remember Sundrops? That was my second line of fabric, so certainly an older line, but the print that we pulled from Sundrops is this little ring print. Right here you see it in red, here you see it in Sundrops. And that was another one that was just so pretty, and it just fit so perfectly in with this collection of fabrics. So that's that print. That's the only one from Sundrops. What do we have next? Cozy Up. Now there are two that we pulled from Cozy Up. First off, the pin dot. I bet some of you recognize the pin dot from Sundrops. From Cozy Up, the pin dot from Cozy Up. This little guy right here, let me see if I can find it on a color. There it is on the aqua. What else do we have? I think we have it. Yes, there it is on that pretty orangey coral color. I always like a pin dot. It's a very versatile print that you can mix in with a lot of different fabrics. It can read almost as a solid depending on what you want it to do for you in your quilt. So I was very glad to have that included in with Coriander Colors. What other colors do we have? There it is in the light gray. And then the green, the aqua. Looks like that's it. So another fun one. Now there is another print that we pulled from Cozy Up, but in a different scale. So that tells you it's going to be that check. I love the 1-inch check, but it didn't complement the other prints in this collection as well as it does scaled down to this smaller size. So that's exactly what we did. This makes a very versatile scale that you can piece in a lot of different projects, and it's nice to have a different scale in comparison to what we've seen previously. So the little check there, and you can see some of those different colors. That's a fun one to have. So the pin dot and the check from Cozy Up. And then we are down to Prairie. I bet Prairie might be new to some of you at least. Prairie was my very first line of fabric with Moda. It came out in May of 2015. So it's been a few years. But from Prairie, well, you can see the stripe was in Prairie originally, and also that dot. So those two are really nice scales, very versatile prints. And as I said, this black stripe, I can't wait to continue using that one. I've used it so much already. So did you get those right? Did you know where the prints came from? Did anybody get all of those correct, knowing where the prints came from? All the way back to Prairie. If so, I am impressed. Way to go. I can't wait until these fabric lines are in quilt shops for you guys to use. They are, as I said, very nice to mix and match with my previous collections, but the palette lends itself really nicely to using with other fabric lines, not even necessarily my previous fabric lines. The scale on these is very nice. You can use it for small piecing. It's just going to be really versatile. So I can't wait for this one to come out. As I said, I have new quilts that I will be sharing with you next Saturday. So be sure to stop back over if you want to see the new quilts that I've designed for this collection. Those were a lot of fun to design as well, just because there's so much contrast and interest and lots of colors. And it was just a lot of fun to design the quilts as well. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will catch you again next time.